Hey guys, Tom Barclay here. It is about 20 to 3 in the morning right now, and I've got to be up in a couple of hours to get a flight back to England, but I wanted to do a video anyway. I'll stick out in the morning because Tottenham are Europa League champions. Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham are Europa League champions. They've beaten Man Utd 1-0 here in Bilbao at the San Mamés Stadium, fantastic stadium by the way, and it is history made for Spurs after this crazy season where the league campaign has been record-breakingly poor from Spurs' point of view, but they've gone all the way in Europe. Ange has gone all the way in Europe, and despite all the sort of question marks around his future, and the videos I've done previously, is still massive question mark over whether he stays or not. But what matters right now is he has delivered success. He's delivered the first trophy for Tottenham in 17 years. It's the first European trophy in 41 years. And it's just a fantastic night for him personally, for the players, for the club. And personally, even though, as I've written and spoke about in the last video, I still get the sense that this could be a parting of the ways anyway. I really sincerely hope it's not. I've said that before. I'm a massive fan of Ange, and I feel like Tottenham aren't the same as Man Utd. They don't win trophies that often. They don't win European trophies very often at all. It's been a long time since. So to sort of dismiss this achievement as badly as the league has gone, I think would be unfair. But I'll come back onto that in a minute. Let's just reflect briefly on the game. It's a bit of a mad game from my point of view because I was doing a lot of writing, a lot about Man Utd actually, rather than Spurs, which was hard work, put it that way, seeing as I don't cover them regularly, and what it meant for them. But from a Spurs point of view, they went into this game. Yes, they'd beaten Man Utd 3 times already this season. Yes, Ange had never lost to Man Utd as a Spurs manager, and yes, Man Utd have had an absolutely atrocious season. But they have still won trophies in recent years, despite being in the doldrums, relative doldrums for them. They won the FA Cup last year. They won the League Cup before then. So I think a lot of people thought when it came to the crunch, when it came to a major European final, they would have the edge. They would find the edge. That sort of history would work for them. But it didn't work out that way. Tottenham found a way to win, and a different way to the way Ange and Ange Ball is sort of perceived. And I do think this really does explode the myth, today's performance, and not just today's performance, all the performances in the sort of knockout rounds in the Europa League, particularly Frankfurt away, particularly Bodo away, apologies, that he can't change, can't adapt. This was massively different. This was defensive resilience. This was 2 holding midfielders. This was get rid of the ball rather than trying to play around with it at the back and sort of invite any danger. This was low risk football again. It wasn't the prettiest at all. It was, again, if anything, the antithesis of how easy on the eye Ange Ball at its best can be. But it was effective, and it got results. It got the result that was needed, and I think it shows that he can change. And I think that really should be a big part of when the higher ups at Tottenham are assessing the situation. They should take that into account, I think. Yes, it's a different thing doing it in the Premier League, but in a way, with so much riding on this game, they delivered when he needed to. And I think that was a big part of it. Team selection he got right as well. I mean, he decided not to start Sonny. We know that Sonny's was massively motivated for this game, but he's just coming back from injury. He's had a difficult season himself. Richarlison's played well in recent weeks, and I thought Richarlison was one of the best players actually before he came off. He was making things happen. He was having a good League Cup with the doggy down the left. He was causing the problems, and I think that worked well. I think playing Pape Sarr worked well as well. Starting him over Odegaard, it was probably maybe a bit more sort of pragmatism to begin the game with, particularly with Bruno Fernandes on the other side of the pitch and how dangerous he can be. Ange talks about running power being important with Sarr, and I thought he had an effective game. The defence were sort of pretty solid. Let's be honest, it wasn't a good game to watch, to be honest. I mean, obviously it was a joy to watch from a Tottenham fan point of view, but I think from a neutral perspective, a lot of people have been talked about this fixture being 2 giants of the Premier League who've had terrible seasons competing in this competition. I don't think it really I think it sort of lived up to that billing to a certain extent. There weren't a lot of chances. There wasn't much great football, but who cares? From a Spurs point of view, I'm trying to think back to the goal that came about. Yeah, of course, Brennan Johnson. It was unclear at first whether it had been a Luke Shaw own goal or not, but I mean, maybe that goal that scrappy goal sort of summed up the game and what was needed to get through. And Side delivers the ball in. Johnson gets a touch, it hits Shaw, it looks like it's going in, but Brennan Johnson gets a flick right at the end for what is his 18th goal of the season for Tottenham. I mean, Brennan's had his own sort of story this year, isn't he? Obviously, when he's getting a bit of flack, back after the North London derby, back in September, which is obviously when Ange had his comment about, and I know a lot of you guys find this very sort of, the wording around him saying he always wins something his second season is crucial. You get very sort of defensive about what he meant by that. But look, Brennan Johnson was, Mick van der Ven was asked about it afterwards, and he said how happy he was to hear him say it because they've gone on to deliver it now. But either way, back then, Johnson, I think he sort of shut down his social media for a little bit off the back of that. That became a bit of a story. But he's come back and proved to be the match winner in the biggest game. He scored loads of goals, and he fared well as well throughout the game. It wasn't without its hairy moments. I think the most dramatic being that clearance from Van der Ven off the line, absolutely brilliant acrobatic clearance where Vicario has this sort of nervy moment where he's going for I think it was a long Casemiro free kick, and somehow manages the ball to slip out of his hands, hits his head, and then the ball goes out. Højlund is there, heads it, it's going in. Van der Ven, alive to the danger, very quickly realises that, gets back, jumps up into the air, and clears it with his weaker right shin, let alone his left leg, to clear it away. It was brilliant, and he sort of fell down, smashed his back on the floor, really putting his body on the line, just like James Maddison did out in Frankfurt in the second leg of the quarter-final. Players putting their bodies on the line for the team, for the cause, and that was a key moment. There were other moments where there was a fantastic save from Vicario right at the end. I mean, there were moments of what you might call shithousery over here in England, particularly with Christian Romero. Seemed to be quite happy to go down at times and enrage at Harry Maguire being pushed up front towards the end. But look, I mean, it worked. It was a far cry from times gone by under Ange, where his teams don't really do that kind of thing. But it was a really savvy thing to do, really, in the modern game at this point in this game, and it got them over the line. And the emotions at the end, I think I was sort of head down having to rewrite a United piece off the back of it. But I think I saw Sonny crying. I saw obviously the joyous scenes throughout on the pitch. Ange looked proud as punch afterwards. We spoke to the players after the game, and they were just absolutely buzzing. It was quite funny watching. We were in the area which is called the mix zone in the stadium, where you get to sort of interact with talk to the players if they so wish. They want to speak to us, and whilst the likes of Vicario and others were doing their post-match chats with us, other players were coming up and with I think it might be like a bottle of beer and enjoying the time. And Bissouma at one point came through with a boombox, or if that's what you still call it, blaring out the music, just revelling in the occasion. It was just joyous scenes all around. But I suppose I want to focus on Ange's press conference, which happened pretty late tonight. Obviously, you'll be seeing this in the morning. And there were fascinating bits in it at the time. When you're on deadline, you're just trying to get the quickest bit out. But there was loads of bits in it, and I want to go through it sort of bit by bit here to sort of break down his points that he made, which talk about his future or hint at his future, what he hopes to come going forward, his whole decision to prioritise this competition. Loads of it. So let's start off. We're going through sort of one by one. I've picked out some points going through the transcript of the press conference. The first one says he referenced apparently his favourite Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating, who this quote is about. This is one for the true believers. Feels like this is really fitting for those who doubted him. And I was thinking about that quote he came out with like a little while ago about the Stonecutters Creed. You might remember I did a video on that. It was from a press conference about a month or so ago, where he talked about the Stonecutters Creed being that on the 100th So for the first 100 blows at the stone, you don't notice any difference, but it's the 101st one, you hit it and it cracks. And effectively the point being is you keep doing the same thing, keep working at it, keep believing in the process, I suppose, as Arteta would probably say. Eventually it will come good. But it takes some belief, particularly when things have been going as pear-shaped as they have in the league. And they got there. And Ange is pointing out, as he said, this one is for the true believers in his process. And fair comment, I guess. He was asked whether this was his greatest achievement, because he's won a lot of trophies over the years, as you guys know, in different countries and different competitions. But this is obviously given the enormity of winning a major European competition. He was asked whether that was his greatest achievement. He said it would be probably I forget what the word was, but effectively disrespectful to the other achievements to sort of brand it like that. But he did admit it was the toughest thing he's ever done, which I think is fair given the sort of things he's been up against with their injuries, people questioning whether he was on the right path or not really. And in that answer, I think he elaborated more about how he made a decision, he said, at the end of January, the transfer window, to really go for the Europa League, as I say, prioritise it. And he admitted in an answer that it probably was at odds with what other people felt at the club. But he felt that was the right thing to do. And he's obviously been vindicated, because not only have they won their first trophy in 17 years, but crucially they're back in the Champions League. So it proved to be the right course of action. I mean, at that point, I'm trying to remember where they were in the league back in January, but probably I seem to remember being pretty far off, or very well away of getting back into the mix through the league for the Champions League. So this felt like the route he wanted to take, and he backed it. He backed his words up on that front. But interesting to hear him talk about how, or hint at that, other people at the club, I don't know who he's referring to, maybe didn't think that was the right approach, and that may speak to why we've had this disconnect, and why many of us are under the impression that he could still go even though after winning this competition. Although you have to say now, it really does put that theory to the test. Having parade on Friday and delivered this first trophy. But anyway, come on to that in a second. I asked him whether how hungry he was to sort of drive this club forward now the Champions League next season. He answered very, very hungry. He obviously spoke about it in his press conference yesterday, how he felt like the job wasn't done, and he wanted to sort of go forward with it. And he said that the players are young and they've climbed the mountain now. And as I said yesterday, there's still a lot of work to do, but not as much work as people may think, despite the league troubles this season. And he feels like tonight is a real great platform for the team to kick on from. I mean, he said that consistently, what a turning point this trophy could be this season. I suppose it's slightly overlooking last year when he was sort of downplaying, to be honest, the important a one-off trophy. This year the narrative's been a bit different. Maybe that's because it's been difficult in the league, but he for a long time he's been talking about how significant it could be, and the confidence sort of shot in the arm it could be for the club, and how it could change the narrative from people mocking Tottenham and thinking they're always also rans and never going to make it to doing this. Now he did admit, I'd be disappointed if we couldn't go down, continue down this path. So it's clear, as he said yesterday, he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want this to be the end. But all his answers hint that it could be. Maybe things can change now. I hope that is the case. But he also said that when he came to the club, Daniel Levy stated, and this might have been at that fans forum, and he said that they went after winners in the past. Obviously, Mourinho and Conte, it didn't work, and now we've got Ange, which I don't remember seeing that as a slight, but the way Ange put it this way was kind of felt like it might have been. But anyway, he said, "But I am a winner." He's obviously won loads of trophies over the years. People maybe belittle or diminish, as the word that he often uses, the significance of some of those trophies, whether it be in Australia or Japan compared to the big ones over here. But look, now, I don't think you can argue that the Europa League, given Spurs' situation, yes, it's not the Champions League, it's not the Premier League, but it's a major European trophy. I don't think you can diminish the significance of that, particularly with the level of problems that Spurs have had this season. Remember, they had no Madison, no Kulusevski, no Bergvall tonight. No Dragisin as well, but those three playmakers probably would all start in his best 11. So, not exactly like he had his full team out there. And then finally he was asked, going forward, what is there a plan? Is he aware of any sort of planned meetings with the hierarchy? And he said, no planned meetings. And he's not had any discussions. He said, no one has spoken to me about anything. Maybe they felt like they didn't need to, or they were waiting for this game. He said his plan was to go back to his hotel room, get a bottle of scotch, have a few quiet ones with his loved ones, have the parade on Friday, obviously, Brighton on Sunday, stress the importance of finishing the season strongly, then go on a holiday, which he feels he deserves with his family. And then he said, in case Sarah, whatever will be, will be. And I'll be honest, it still feels like how I said it before the game, that I'm getting the sense that it's still probably more likely that he'll go. But as I always said, that's barring some sort of emotional U-turn from Daniel Levy and the ownership regarding Ange if he went on to win it. And I sincerely hope that is the case. I hope they look at this, and I know there'll be fans out there who understandably will be more sort of hard-nosed about it and think it's just a one-off game, and how can you base everything on one game, and will point to Man United sticking by Erik ten Hag after he won the FA Cup last season when he was all set to leave, and then it obviously didn't pan out. But as I said yesterday, Tottenham aren't Man United. I know they've just beaten them, but Man United are used to doing it. They were already talking about how they won here. It wouldn't have really shifted the dial that much on what's been an awful season for them. Spurs is a different story. This is their first European trophy in 41 years, their first major trophy in 17 years. And for him to deliver that, I don't think should be overlooked. And I think it should be given more gravitas, more sway than some people may feel it deserves. I think it should be given more, given all the injuries he's had. So, look, you guys know who've been following this for a while, this channel. I'm a fan of his. He's obviously a journalist's dream, and I'm invested in the story. But I feel like it's an amazing end to this season. It'll be an amazing end. If he moves on, this will be like a fantastic fairy tale season ending after a sort of nightmare league campaign that will be remembered for many years, not just from Spurs supporters, but from fans, beyond that, because it's just quite a rare story in football. But yeah, I sincerely hope the hierarchy sort of look on it favourably and have what feels like a change of heart and stick with him and give him the chance to persevere in the Champions League next year, keep backing these young players, and see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up now because I probably do need to try and get at least an hour's sleep. But let me know your thoughts. Tell me about your celebrations as well. Were you out here in Bilbao? What happened? Any interesting stories? Where did you watch it? What about you guys over in Australia or in Korea? You got up at crazy o'clock to watch the game. Tell me all about it. I love those stories, and what you think should happen next, and how much you're hoping, I suppose, or not hoping. Maybe you think it is still, it's a perfect way of saying goodbye and moving on from here, and maybe it's time for someone else, or whether you think Ange deserves to stay on. What you think will happen? Let me know. I know that it's understandable. Like, journalists, receive a bit of flack when they do stories that write stories that people don't particularly want to hear. That's not really. That's kind of the role. Really, is to if you hear something and you believe it to be correct, you have to write it, whether it's not particularly seen as favourably or not. But I understand how some of you have been frustrated by the sort of Ange future narrative, particularly ahead of a European final. That's understandable, but that's I feel like if that's the story that I'm getting, I've got to write it, even if it's not going to be viewed particularly favourably. But as I think you can tell from the way I've hopefully done this video, but just generally throughout the season, I'm a supporter of Ange, and I hope he I hope the story sort of continues, I suppose. But anyway, let me know your thoughts, and I'll probably do a video from the parade, or maybe tomorrow. Cheers, guys.